Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our first talk show for this season. And I really hope all of my wonderful Muslim mamas are doing well. I know it's the season to be poorly, but I want to thank you all for joining us for what is going to be, inshallah, a fantastically inspirational evening. And we have a great 90 minutes lined up for all of you. So please do engage with us for the next 90 minutes. And without further ado, I am going to let you know what we have in store for you. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Kiran. I am a paediatrician, so I work with children and babies from the age of 0 till about 18. I am a proud Londoner, a mother of 3, and I am currently on maternity leave and sort of navigating my way back into work. I did want to take an extended maternity leave, but the energy crisis has unfortunately derailed some of those plans. And I think this topic today is therefore really pertinent, because what we're talking about is thinking about our potential as Muslim women, and importantly as Muslim mums. And one of the things mothers do is that they put everyone else before them. It's all about their families, their homes, their partners, their extended families, and sometimes we get lost in that process. And I think the current climate, the current sort of energy crisis, the current economic struggle, a lot of Muslim mums, and that's evident in our chat groups, isn't it, are thinking about reinventing themselves, about thinking about what it is that they want in life. And some of them have empty nests, so their children are going off to college and university, and then they have all this time. And it's so amazing that they are thinking about themselves, in a long time for many of them, and thinking about what they want and where do they want to be in the next couple of years, which is, amazing. And it brings us so nicely to today's topic, because what we'll be talking about today and where our focus lies is unlocking our true potential as women, and Muslim women in particular. What are we doing to nurture ourselves? What are we doing to nurture our passions, our ideas, our beliefs, even our deen? And we will be discussing all things career, empowerment, and doing successful things as a woman beyond our role as mothers. And I'm really excited because I love speaking to talented and groundbreaking, trailblazing Muslim women, and we have 3 of those for you today. So we have 3 guests for you today: Dr. Khadijah, Siraad Ismail, and Dr. Fuller, who will all be sharing their wisdom with you about reaching your goals and fulfilling your needs as a mother and as a woman. And make sure you stay tuned until the very end, because we have a very, very special message from our own Dr. Zahra Mohammed. For those of you that don't know, she's the Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain. So be sure to stay tuned. Make sure you put your questions underneath the Facebook stream, because I will be checking it, and I will be posing your questions to our lovely panel. And remember to let us know where you are. So please let us know where you're watching from. I love listening and seeing where you guys are, whether it's on the other side of the world. And remember to tag other mums who might find this beneficial, and throw your questions. This is for you. This is for our community, and the community only works if we all do our bit. So do send those questions in. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first guest. So our first guest is mashallah, Dr. Khadijah Al-Shayar. And if you don't know who she is, she's a research fellow for the Digital British Islamic Project, based at the Al-Walid Centre for the Study of Islam in the Contemporary World at the University of Edinburgh. Now, I have to be honest, I didn't know what that was, but she is amazing. So she has earned her PhD from Royal Holloway University of London, and then her research interests lie in sort of the political and cultural expression of activism, advocacy, and representation and identity among Muslim women and other minority groups in the UK. And I think this is so relevant, particularly with everything that's going on around the world currently, and where our identity is being questioned. And also Sister Khadijah maintains a keen engagement with sort of grassroots initiatives and organisers, and includes performing several advisory roles. So in a nutshell, she is a fantastic role model for many of our girls, and I'm really, really excited to be welcoming her here. She's also the General Secretary of the Muslims in Britain Research Project. Research network. So she's, mashallah, she is a woman that wears a lot of hats, and I'm hoping that she will share some of her insights with you on how she arrived at this career. I have already got lots of questions, and if you want to know about her, she has lots of publications, but including Muslim Identity in Politics, Islam, Activism and Equality in Britain. So welcome, Sister Khadijah.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much, Kiran. It's really, really lovely to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. I am in awe, mashallah. Firstly, I'm going to question if you've actually achieved what you've achieved, because you look far too young.
That's very, very generous of you to say. I'm not very young. I'll be honest.
Mashallah, you look amazing.
It's very generous of you. No,
so tell us, so I have to be honest, when I first read that, so I don't even know what the Digital British Islam Project is. So would you mind just, introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about you and how you ended up in this sort of role?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think, you're very, very generous introduction. I think you covered quite a lot of ground, and that my background is in history and politics, and my research has thus far very much been focused on the area of British Muslim history, British Muslim political, in particular British Muslim politics, and so the history of Muslim activism, engagement with the state, issues around that, what issues have motivated Muslims in the UK to be active in public life, and what are the barriers that they've faced, what are the issues that have framed that, these kinds of questions. So that's what I've been working on for the past, so now I'm going to show my age, right? Almost 20 years.
Wow, mashallah.
Yeah. So I'm not young, as I say.
Roll with the compliment, you look it.
Thank you. No, this project is very it's a new one. We just commenced actually a few months ago. It's an it's a collaborative project between 3 different institutions. So it's my own institution, Edinburgh, Coventry University, and the University of Wales, Trinity St David's in Cardiff, in Lampeter, I should say. So myself and colleagues across those 3 institutions work together on this. The idea behind the project really is to understand what the British Muslim digital space looks like. Obviously, appreciating that that's a very fluid and amorphous territory, right? And it's not something you can contain or you can label as such, because the internet is what it is. It's
yes, and also we're not a homogenous group. Yes,
of course. So one of the things that we're trying to do is get a sense for what we call cyber Islamic environment, these cyber Islamic environments that the British Muslims engage with look like, to map them over time, so how they've evolved and changed over time, and to think about how we like to use them, what role they play in our lives, how they interact with our everyday lives, online and offline, and what kind of issues sort of shape our usage of them, whether they're sort of geographic, cultural, intergenerational, there's all kinds of factors. There's 3 sort of main themes that we're looking at as we address this, and just to try and again, as I say, give some coherence to the project, because it is the kind of thing that is huge and can just eat you up literally, with how expansive it is. So those 3 themes are gender, authority and agency, and we're asking various questions sort of under those subheadings. Again, realizing that there's overlap again between them, but they're more sort of like guiding themes that we use when we're asking our questions and when we're speaking to people. And we're at a really exciting phase at the moment, having just launched a few months ago, which is that we're collecting data. So I've been doing lots of speaking to people, holding focus groups, and we're looking at holding interviews and surveys and asking people to keep diaries.
Okay, so I guess my immediate question is why do we need that? Why do we need to understand what Muslim people are doing, I guess, on the internet, or where we are in the digital space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's because well, there's lots of potential reasons, but for me as a historian, this is history in the making, and this is us, trying to understand more about ourselves, more about the issues that excite us, that interest us, that anger us, and how those conversations play out online. Do they play out differently online than they do in sort of offline? Why is that? How do online spaces make our lives easier? How do they make them more difficult? So part of it is documenting Muslim life and actually just keeping a track of what that's like, and for posterity kind of thing. But also it provides lots of material that can be useful for Muslim organizations, that can be useful for other sectors that engage with Muslims. So yeah.
I guess, I mean, my immediate follow-up question is, and then sort of, I know the project's only been running for a few months, you said, but sort of what insights can you share with us about what the digital Muslim space looks like? And, what should we know as Muslim communities going forward about the online digital space and our online presence? I mean, obviously Muslim Mamas is a digital space that a lot of women use, alhamdulillah, almost 250,000 users, which is fantastic globally, and it is for us a space of advice, jokes, seeking so many things, and it brings so many communities together. But I'd be interested to know what that looks like from your research.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it is early days, so I am, hesitant to make sort of bold claims, because I'm still very much at data gathering, and we all are, myself and my colleagues at data gathering stage, and I recognise that even, this is a 3-year project, so even as we wind up, that firstly, the speed at which technology develops is crazy. So we're always playing catch up, and also we'll never get like an authoritative, fully in depth and breadth understanding of these kinds of things. We can only seek to understand things that we've sectioned off as much as we can, right? Because that's the nature of the beast, right? But having said that, I think Muslim Mamas is a really, really good example of why and how we can and should study these kinds of things, because I've personally been a member of Muslim Mamas since it started up, and I've had the privilege of seeing just how it's grown, how it's diversified. There was the main group initially, and now there's I don't know how many others. They're all little sort of specialist interests. The other platforms that it's branched out, started off from Facebook, and it's got presence on various other platforms. The partnerships, it's fascinating, and it tells a story there. It really does. It tells a story of the role that it plays in the lives of all of these women who, as you say, are so diverse in so many ways. The amount of, it's fascinating how so many different conversations at so many different levels, from the very mundane to the lighthearted to the desperately urgent, are all happening on this platform. And are happening, in ways that are beneficial to people. Of course, I'm sure there are issues, not that I'm privy to them, but I'm sure there are times when things degenerate and become a bit icky, and interventions needed or whatever. But generally speaking, it's chugging along successfully. That's fascinating in and of itself. And there are so many other spaces where that kind of things are happening, and that they really play a really key role in people's lives.
It does. And, you know, so I am on a bit of a scale about this, because I do feel like with sort of the development of these digital communities and digital worlds, I do feel like we've lost that sense of actual community in real life. And a lot of people turn to the online space, whereas, you know, traditionally they would have maybe popped down the road to their neighbor to have like a cup of tea and vent, or gone to like a, I don't know, like a group. And I know, like, I have very, you know, strong memories of my mum taking us to sort of what I think were like gup chup shy like evenings, you know, where she hung out with people that were her own age, like mums predominantly. So I guess, you know, for me, that's the thing I struggle with. So what are your feelings about sort of the digitalization of everything? Do you think we live in an overtly digital world? Is that a good thing? And I know this is something that a lot of our mothers struggle to navigate, because we've obviously got kids that are born into much more digitalized and technologically advanced things than we were, and they're exposed to it, you know, at a very early age. I mean, I still remember dial-up internet, and then like that noise it used to make, you know. But my kids, like, they are on it.
I know, right? Yeah, it's funny. I was telling my kids about that the other day, and they were just like, "What?" you know, and they couldn't even, you know, I had to Google it so I could show it to them and like get them to hear the sound. And they're like, "How on earth did you?" You know, but yeah, fun times, huh? Yeah, I can really relate to what you're saying, because I also sort of reminisce about those days. But I think also, I think it's a shame if and as we do lose those in-person spaces, the frequency of them, the authenticity of them, but also we have to be honest with ourselves about the times we live in and the forces that are out of our control. And, you know, we've just been through a pandemic where, you know, whether we liked it or not, we were all isolated in some shape or form. And for many people, the online space is an absolute lifeline, pandemic or no pandemic, right? We know that as mothers, you know, there are times, sometimes very long times, where we feel isolated, we feel cut off from the world. And the internet plays a role in filling that gap, in providing us with information, providing us with companionship, providing us with validation, affirmation, solidarity, support. But there's, as with everything, there's, you know, there are challenges and hurdles that come with that. And, you know, talking to people, as I have been over the past few months, people also talk about difficulties online. They talk about, you know, sometimes how some spaces can be, you know, people can be more emboldened and adversarial because they've got anonymity. They know that there's no accountability, and that's a serious issue that women face in particular.
How do you mean?
Online trolls, basically, I suppose, is one aspect of that. You know, people commenting in ways that are more aggressive than they would do to your face, basically, because they're behind a screen and they feel protected and they feel that nobody can hold them to account. But that has real life implications, and it can lead to like pylons, you know, and all kinds of horrible things. And there's addiction, right? There's a, you know, even on a very basic level, addiction to the internet. Forget addiction to other things that are much more worrying, right? But that can really mess around with our mental health. It can mess around with our in real life relationships. It can ruin relationships, really can. So there are serious issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because, I mean, I work with children, and I think in the sort of last sort of 10 years, and I would say in the last couple of years in my practice, I've really seen a rise in sort of mental health issues related to children and accessing like social media spaces. So, you know, things like Snapchat and TikTok and all of these ridiculous challenges that come across. And it is becoming harder to keep them safe, but also to not let that addiction and that sort of need to scroll become so pervasive that it sort of takes over everything else. And I think even as adults we struggle with this, and it's really interesting because a lot of these online spaces are designed to make us scroll, right? And so I have a social media account, and actually just yesterday I asked my community, like, what are you doing on this space? What is it that you're looking for? Because I think it's so easy to turn up and pitch content that is mindless, you know, in many ways, and doesn't actually invite conversation about things that matter or things that are mindful. And I think the older I get, the more I think about mindful presence and mindful living. And even in relation to Islam, that's what Islam asks us to do, isn't it? To be present and to know yourself, and then to use that to improve yourself. And I think with the digitalization of stuff, I think it's easy to, in many ways, to access things, you know, that you don't have to go to the masjid, you can access courses online and stuff, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It really is. I think because it's empowering on one level, because
Yes.
you know, you may not otherwise have been able to, but also it makes us expect quick fixes. So, you know, again, some of the conversations I've been having around people seeking religious guidance, you know, there's this sense that people, or they get the impression that other people in general, as a community, as society, you know, we have a question, we want an answer now. And we want it to be an answer that will slot right in with everything else going on in our lives. We want that convenience. But what if it doesn't? What do we do then, right? People go shopping. It's like, okay, so that didn't work for me. Okay, so I'll just Google the next sort of bearded guy who looks authentic, but we don't even have time to even look up their credentials or think about what their life looks like offline. So that, you know, so there's it's all about being, you know, quick fixes. It encourages us to be you know, impetuous and you know, spontaneous about everything. And yeah, what does that mean? And I think, you know, the point you were talking about even adults being addicted as well, I think, you know, children take the cue from adults. And, you know, we've all been there, taking our kids to the local playground where parents are basically absently, you know, pushing their kids on the swing and looking at their phone with the other hand. We've all been there, we've all probably done that, right?
Absolutely.
You know, what does that do to our children if they're being raised, seeing us behave in that way?
Well, it's interesting that you pose that question to our listeners and to our mums, because actually one of the mums has asked the questions and she said, well, then how can we balance being in the digital space both in our, you know, work and in our personal life? So, you know, I'll throw that to your expertise.
That is a really difficult question that I think, you know, I personally struggle with it. Absolutely. I'll put that out there. And I know a lot of us do, and I don't have any quick answers, because also we all live very different lives. We all have very different challenges. We all, you know, use the digital for different reasons as well. And I think, you know, one of the things that you said, Kiran, earlier about, you know, being a bit more intentional about how you use things, the older you're getting, I think that's something that that's come up in some of the conversations I've been having. And again, I personally can relate to, I just don't have the time to be wasting it on sort of, on the less mindful, I would say, stuff, because I don't have that luxury. But
I mean, it's not a luxury, but it is a luxury. For me, if you think at the times we live in, like, you know, I mean, things are dire. Like, and I say this in the UK as both a woman, but also as a healthcare professional. When I meet my patients, they are so depressed, they are so upset, they are really struggling. I mean, just on Tuesday in my clinic, you know, I had a parent crying because they couldn't afford paracetamol for their children, and so I do think that some of the digital space that we have serves a purpose for escapism for a lot of our community.
And that's a lifeline, isn't it?
And
really is something we shouldn't
absolutely. And I think they do turn to the digital spaces for a bit of relief. And I don't know how others navigate it, but I find myself in two minds about that. The first is I only allow myself content that enriches me. So, you know, I don't watch, for example, videos that make me think, oh, I wish I had that, or I wish, you know, that FOMO sense that sometimes can happen when you watch videos of like people unboxing like 1,000 presents or whatever else. And the other thing I do is I log out of my apps so that I have to actively put my email address and my password in every time I log in. Which is just an additional step and a barrier for me to just mindlessly scroll and that's what works for me. And I find that if I stay logged in, I'll wake up and I'll have a notification at like 5 a.m. and instead of just going back to sleep, I'll start scrolling, and then I've lost my morning. And instead of starting my morning with fajr and a mindful way, you end up, you know, on internet on a digital
That's a really,
space.
I think that those are both really, really good steps, and I'm glad they work for you. You know, other things that some people do is use app blockers. So, you know, like for a chunk, you know, whether it's the working day or whether it's the evening or whatever, that they want to sort of block out so that they don't get notifications, and so that they can stop them. So as you say, it's an additional barrier. Or some people sort of move certain apps to like the last page of their home screen, so that they have to keep going to them, which is an extra barrier, I suppose, for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and one of our readers, what our mums has said, she gets anxiety with so much going on in the digital space, and feels like we're doomed if we log on, we're doomed if we don't. And I sort of really resonate with that, because there's like a something inside you that really wants to check Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, whether that, there's a real need for it. And she says that our lives are so immersed into the digital space, and particularly as things become, sort of more virtual reality, she's worried for the future of her children. And we haven't got much more time left, Sister Khadijah. So I wondered if you could perhaps give, I don't know, a few nuggets of advice for our women that are watching on how to navigate digital spaces and what it looks like for them for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously, take, what I say with, take it, put it in context, and obviously there will be other people that far more qualified than me, and also times change, and everyone's context is different. But having said that, I think one of the things that came up in our conversation, which I think is always good advice, is be intentional. Think about and this is for ourselves, but also for our children and our families. It's solid advice to give to young people who are growing up. Don't just do things because everyone else is doing them. This is the latest app. Okay, everybody's on it. I've got to log on myself. I've got to download it. Why? What's it doing for you? What's it going to do to your family? What are the risks and benefits? Weigh up, think about it. As you would with anything else in life. It's very easy with digital. We all have to be online in some shape or form. It's an essential part of life nowadays. It's like, having running water in your house, pretty much, because we use it for all kinds of things. But it doesn't have to be taken as a whole package. So, when you're thinking about giving a device to your child, think it through. Don't just do it because everyone else in their class has one. It's not something that's, is it appropriate for your particular child in their particular situation at their, these are conversations we all need to address and make space and time for. They're not things that we should sort of postpone or delay or shrug off, whether it's for ourselves or our families, because I know it's cliche, but it's an actual jungle out there. It really is. Yes. It has so many benefits and opportunities and lifelines, as we've said. But also, the fact there's so many spaces that are unregulated.
Yes.
That there are all kinds of I don't need to just go into more detail just about how hazardous it can be. And ultimately, we can only be responsible for ourselves, our immediate families, as much as we can. So yeah, mindfulness, I think, is the key, central piece of advice that I would give. Sit down, think about it, do your research, speak to others that you trust, bismillah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. And also, I guess, reading about your research that inshallah will hopefully be published in the next couple of years. So thank you so much for joining us. I know you're poorly, so I won't keep you much longer. I really, inshallah, hope you get well soon. And if all the mums, please make dua for Sister Khadijah, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grant you blessing in your work, because it is such needed work in our space. And thank you for carrying that banner for us.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to be with you guys.
Take care, Sister Khadijah.
Thank you.
So just, thank you to Sister Khadijah for joining us and summarizing sort of what it means to be online these days. And I think, for those of you that missed it, her golden nuggets of advice were, I think, digital literacy. So make sure that you are aware of what things are being accessed in your house, what they are, what purpose they serve. And what I really like was her thing about mindful and intentional scrolling and accessing of the digital space. So I hope that was useful for you mums. I know I found it really useful. And remember to keep sending your questions in. I am using them. And remember to stay to the end. We do have a very important message from Dr. Zara Mohammed. But in keeping with sort of trying to get more literate and trying to upskill ourselves, we recently asked Muslim mums, and I don't know if you saw that post, but we did ask to look for ways to support our mums going back to work, and particularly for those of you that were looking into a career change. And I think in this current economic climate, we do need more than one household income, don't we? And I think a lot of women are looking for ways to go back into work, change careers, or have like multiple streams of income. And lots of women, lots of Muslim mamas are actively seeking work and sort of engaging in various career options. And it was really lovely because one of our things was kickstarting #Mama Careers Initiative. So if you haven't checked that out, do check that out after this talk show. And we received lots of positive and inspirational stories about nurses amongst us. And I have a very soft spot for nurses. They are amazing, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. They are honestly a godsend to the healthcare professional. And lots of you lots of the mums shared their experiences about nurses, and it was really lovely to read, whether it was, you know, talking about the challenges, the rewards that comes with helping others. And I'm gonna read out something from one of our mums, from Sakina G, and she made a really beautiful comment, and I'm gonna say it verbatim. Nurses are the backbone of the hospital. They are so critical to good care. A good nurse can be literally life-saving when they're advocating on your behalf, as they know the patients better than the doctors. It's really hard job too many nurses burn out, but the ones that manage to get through to you, you can see that they've dedicated their life to others, and you can see that they dedicated life to caring for others, and Allah sees your struggles and your reward will be great. I mean, I think that's beautiful. It really resonates with my experience and my own experience with nursing staff and nurses that have looked after me while I've been in hospital, or my sons when they've been in hospital. And it's a beautiful part of our deen, and it's a big act of worship, isn't it? So this brings me on nicely to my next guest. So she is Siraad Ismail, who is a highly specialist nurse practitioner. She works and offers nurse leadership management courses across her sector for CAMS, so it's child and adolescent mental health. She has a clinical caseload managing complex young people with neurodevelopmental disorders. So those are things like autism, ADHD, and learning disability, and other children who are having mental health associated difficulties and or behaviors that are challenging. And I think in the last couple of years, we've seen a real rise in those behaviors, haven't we, with sort of the pandemic, mental health really taking a hit. So welcome, Sister Siraad.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. You are killing it.
I'm trying.
No, there's no trying it. You are alhamdulillah, really shining a beacon. How did that make you feel, knowing what our mamas have said about the amazing work that you do?
I guess for me, it sort of reminds me why I do what I do. Like, it's just, I always say it's one of the most fulfilling careers that I could have ever chosen. And I always feel like Allah guided me to this role, and I'm always humbled, you know, and as that mama was saying, you know, there are hard days, and there can be really hard days, but actually it's sort of like a few in not within the majority. So you do have a really good fulfillment from this. So alhamdulillah.
Okay, well, I know it's hard and I know it's challenging, but I'm going to take you right back in the day, and tell me, so what made you become interested in a career in nursing, and how did you go about it?
Do you know, it's interesting. So when I originally, like in my younger days, I was really keen on being a midwife, and I really set out wanting to be a midwife. You know, I was partner for my sister-in-law, Lahmar Barak, and you know, got to video everything. I even helped the midwife with all the cleanup and stuff. Like, I really went up.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was just always like, I felt like I wanted to be a midwife, and it was I think I was in college at the time, and I had just to try and pick up some extra money. Like I did a bit of tutoring on the side for sort
You were
of
hustling.
Early secondary school children, exactly. Really had to hustle. And this boy, bless him, he had sort of really mild learning difficulties at the time. And he was sort of, mum was really struggling to try and support him with education. And it was at the time, you know, especially within BME communities, it was a real taboo around understanding what that meant. So we just really adjusted how he was taking in his tutoring. So rather than being cooped up in your bedroom, we went outside to the park, and, you know, we just did loads of creative ways to try and help him. And he went from sort of being a bottom set by the end of the school year. He was a top set, acing everything.
Oh, mashallah.
He's doing so brilliant that, you know, his mum was so happy and was just like, what it is that you're doing. And I was just trying to explain to her that you just have to change how he's learning, and actually he'll still thrive. You just have to be really flexible. And I think from that, I was like, okay, I feel like I found my niche here. Let me just try and explore this further. So I saw that there was a nursing sort of course, but it was specialized in sort of this particular area within learning disabilities. And I just felt, you know what, I had all my offers. I had 5 offers, and I dropped all of them and I moved myself over to nursing. Also, you can imagine my mum was like, oh my gosh, what did you do? Like, she's just very focused, you know, my child needs to go to university. So the fact that I dropped everything, she was mortified. But overall, alhamdulillah, she was glad that I got a place and it all worked out for the best. So that's sort of how I came into nursing, and I went down the traditional route. So I did 3 years. And at the time, the course was free. You had a bursary on top. There was a really good incentive for coming into the program. So I did the course, finished, and I qualified 2016, alhamdulillah, and I've been doing nursing ever since. But I just sorry.
In what's quite a niche area, I have to say, I'm honestly sat here in awe, because I'm a pediatrician, and we just don't have nurses like you. We have so many mental health issues and learning disability within our communities, and we need someone that understands the community to then work with the kids. So honestly, genuinely, I make so much dua that you inspire so many other women to go, because we need people like you in our communities.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, thank you so much. Okay, I do I work quite closely with pediatricians as well, and they're absolutely amazing, so kudos to you as well. But yeah, I do feel like overall I found the best place for me. Like now, if I look to myself now versus, you know, 8 years ago when I qualified, it was just, I would never have wanted to do midwifery back then. But, you know, alhamdulillah to those that do it, but I just feel like actually this was really my calling. You know, it's not a coincidence that I literally did, like, all of a sudden I gave my life up to do midwifery, and then all of a sudden this just completely changed it. Like, Allah willed, alhamdulillah. So
yeah, well, we plan and God plans.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you a question, Sister Siraad, because, you know, you are standing here today as, mashallah, a really successful woman, and a really successful, I'm going to use the word Black, because is that how you identify yourself? Yeah, so a really successful Black woman, and you are clearly from a minority. And what was that like? Were there any barriers for you being a Black woman in what is, as I know, a quite white dominated space? And, you know, how did you overcome it? And what sort of advice can you give to those of our, you know, young mamas that are starting out in their careers?
So I will be sitting here and lying to you profusely if I didn't tell you that I didn't have difficulties, like being a Black woman, and not just being Black, also a woman as well, and also a Muslim woman on top. Like, it's like 3 different struggle areas within society. And actually it was just a massive thing around like there will be sort of like prejudices, Islamophobia, like everything around to do with my hijab, you know. And it was like, at one point someone was like, you shouldn't even be wearing it in the workplace, you know, it's infection control issues, etc. And I was like, it was such a challenging time. And I think especially in my junior days, there was real difficulty around being assertive. Like, you know, they teach you all the theory around how to be a nurse and around doing your practical elements of it, but they don't teach you sort of the underlying skills that you pick up, you know, when you qualify. And those were sort of one of the big things. And, you know, even over the past sort of like 2 years, I really had a really difficult sort of indirect racist experience. And this is even coming from professionals and sort of managers higher up. And it was it was a lot to cope with, but actually the good thing, and one thing I really admire about the NHS, is that there are robust processes to be able to try and mitigate this. So, you know, if it's not your manager, it's your manager's manager, it's your manager's manager, or, you know, if you want to do it anonymously, there are always, you know, we have an NHS called the Guardian Service. So, you know, you can whistleblow anonymously if you feel like there are genuine malpractice going on within where you are. Then there's loads of things to sort of help support that. But I do feel like even with all the experiences that I did have, actually it made me a better clinician, it made me a better person, and, you know, it really focused on wanting to advocate more and wanting to get more people and diversify sort of the working culture that we have. So I stuck around and did lots of recruitment, lots of interviews, like anything I could dabble on. And it was just, you know, really focused around introducing fair recruitment into the trust, where, you know, you have to have a BME member sitting on the interview panel. You know, you can't have an interview panel without a BME member. So there was just a real push for these things to be happening. And actually now, though things have improved, I feel like there are still a lot to do and a long way to go, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's definitely gotten a lot better around these things. And actually
and it's so important, isn't it? Because you can't actually, when you are young and when you are looking for role models, if you can't see someone that looks like you, that dresses like you, it's really hard to imagine yourself in that role. So I guess, what would be the advice you would give to any one of our mamas who are thinking about sort of going into nursing, or if they've got children that are thinking about embarking a career in nursing? What would be your tidbits of information?
I would always advocate to do it anyway, but
even in the current climate.
Even in a current climate, I know that obviously, I know in the news they're talking about, like, you know, we're going on strike and things like that, but that came from as a result of a lot of systemic difficulties, and not even just the last 2 years, but even further back. They have tried to reward it, so we have had sort of pay increases in line with inflation, but that is still a lot to do, because we're still underpaid a lot compared to, you know, people in other professions. But I do feel like, do still come into it, you know, the starting salary when I was band 5, you know, when I've just registered and started out, was much less than it is now. So it has sort of gone up a little bit, particularly for those that are in London. But at the same time, please do sort of, if you come into a team or you come into a course, whatever, I want you to feel as though you can report, you can, like, we're taught, especially, I think, I look at my character as a Muslim woman, you know, we're always taught, you know, try and be, you know, quiet, and try and be, you know, be modest and things like that, etc. But when it comes to these issues, like, absolutely not. Like, you please have a look at those that are around you and really do sort of advocate for yourself. It's really important to, and actually, in the long run, there are a lot of benefits compared to sort of what the risks are, really.
And we are talking about, you know, careers in nursing. So I'm going to read you something Sister Siraad, but one of our mothers said, and she's a nurse, and she has written, "Along with the varied challenges, I do enjoy my job. I love that I can be the person who is a fundamental part of the care a child receives. It's part of our religion to want to help people. After all, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and whoever saves a life, it's as though he has saved the lives of all of mankind." This for me is the biggest motivation. So what motivates you, particularly now, because we're living in a climate where it's really hard to be positive? So where do you get your motivation from?
I think first and foremost is the fact that my career is happiness in the eyes of Allah. Like, alhamdulillah, like, I can always take that. Like, so even if I have a difficult day, like, I can always try and rationalize and regulate myself to be like, you know what, this is what I'm supposed to do. You know, I like the fact that I go in and I better the lives of the people around me or the patients that come in to see me. Like, that's automatic. Like, I go home genuinely feeling so satisfied with myself. So like, do you know what I mean? So it's one of those, like, really rewarding roles, like, thankfully. But also, it's really important to have a work-life balance. Like, that is one of the key things I always take away from it, you know. And I think as clinicians, we're so susceptible to staying longer, doing longer hours, etc. And actually, at some point, especially for my mamas that have kids and things, like, you really have to think about boundaries. And actually, you know, that needs to be one of your biggest things to put in place.
We're not very good with boundaries as women, generally. And even worse as moms.
So it's a massive big thing to put in, but actually having that work-life balance, especially now I've moved from sort of doing shifts to 9 to 5, but I know some really appreciate doing that because you get longer days off. But actually having that 9 to 5 means I can really structure how my life looks like outside of work. So it means that if I want to catch up with friends, I can catch up, see family, I can see family, etc. But then also doing things that actually bring myself and my health fulfillment as well, because I know that where my health is not great, I will then obviously then portray itself within work. So how does my stress look like? How do I try and relieve that stress? You know, I spend an hour in the pool and it genuinely just, I can clear my mind and just really focus on what the task is at hand, sort of thing. But it allows me to be more productive then when I go back into work, just because I feel more energized. So it is really about finding what motivates you when, especially when work becomes really difficult. Actually, it's really turning into that to try and refresh yourself, to actually go back into what you enjoy.
Okay, well, alhamdulillah, I'm really glad that you have like quite robust, I guess, mechanisms to make sure that you're, you know, fulfilling and sort of doing the things that motivate you. So we have a few questions from our mamas, and one of them is, what are the different avenues for nursing? Is there an age limit? So can you be an older nurse? And can you step back in if you dropped out the course for any reason, if you had to take a break?
Yeah, so this is the one good thing about actually the nursing course altogether, is there's so much flexibility within the program, and even post-program as well. So I worked in clinical education for a couple of years, so I supported all the universities with nursing students, and there's loads of different avenues to get in. So it's really opened up. There's more flexibility now as to how it looks like, whereas, you know, back when I was there, traditional route was just you had your A-levels or you had your level 3 course or something, then you had to go into sort of the degree. Whereas now they've introduced apprenticeships, and they've introduced sort of a way that actually you can go off to do the course, especially now where you're, you know, universities are charging £9,000 a year now, especially for nursing courses, which is ridiculous. They've opened up different streams because they've acknowledged that actually a lot of our mums and parents and sort of older population, they are really sort of wanting to get back into university, but this is a blockage for them. It's how can they balance being able to still be, you know, a parent and having going to work, etc., and providing for their home whilst also getting education. So within nursing, I think we introduced it in 2017, we started piloting the apprenticeships. Actually, it turned out to be a real success. So we opened up 2 streams. So there's a nursing associate program, which is for those that may come in. At first, we kept it within to those that are employed within the NHS. So if you were employed and you had GCSEs or equivalent, but you didn't have any sort of like college or sixth form level qualifications, that course allowed you to step into a foundation degree where you could go and do your 2 years, and actually you'd have an equivalent of a level 5 qualification within university. But this was all funded by the government. This is all funded by the employer. You know, you wouldn't be paying a penny. If you had a lecture day at uni, you know, you give a study leave from work, so you're always still getting paid whilst you're training. And they could go off and do this. And then eventually we introduced the actual nurse degree apprenticeship, where you actually, you know, if you've got some sort of college level courses, or if you've done the nursing associate, it's a step up to then complete the full degree, again, paid while you train. And at that point, you come out as a registered nurse. So they really did open up some avenues away from the traditional route for people to be able to access it. When I was in uni, I was the minority, actually. Those that were younger, so the younger lot that came straight out of college into university, we were the minority. Actually, in university, you will see loads of people that are mature learners. And actually I actually loved that. I really preferred that. And they come in, they had kids, they had married life, they had 10 years of experience in the field before they even came into the course. You know, there's people came from so many different backgrounds that it was just so refreshing to see. And actually I felt that I was lacking experience because I was just a school leaver. So
well, I think it's really important that people don't undervalue the life experience they bring, and nursing is all about life experience. I think the majority of the healthcare professional, but just to point out that, as you know, there are lots of different types of nursing jobs aren't there. So how can our audience find out what role suits them, and what sort of fields can they specialize into after general nursing?
So there are 4 main fields of nursing. So you've got your adult nursing or your general nursing, you've got your mental health nursing, your children's nursing, and your learning disability nursing. So those are 4 main pathways. If you are unsure as to what type of branch of nursing you want to go into, then you can go onto the healthcareers.nhs.uk website and /find your careers, and there's an online quiz. You just go on it and just see, they'll match up sort of what your qualities are or what your preferences are, and they'll find which branch actually would best suit you. So
amazing.
There's definitely that as an option, but actually even that's just at training. So even when you qualify, in addition, there's loads of different branches that you then go into and specialize if you want to, aside from what you originally trained to do. So I trained as a learning disability nurse. However, coming out and over the years, I also then gained massive experience and qualifications within mental health, within autism, within ADHD, and on top of learning disabilities. So it's really just, don't feel like you'll be stuck even once you qualify. You don't have to be stuck within that specific branch. You can continue to expand yourself out and go into different pathways. People went into research. You can be a research nurse. People have gone into quality and improvement, so looking at ways to try and improve things or projects to improve things. I did corporate at one point, so I went into corporate nursing, doing project management, project experience. So if you want to do like more project management stuff, more sort of like tech stuff, you can actually move into that field of nursing as well. So you're never limited. There's so many options available. Depends on what, I guess, works for you and your sort of work-life balance, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've just had a question about the nurses striking, and I just want to say that yes, the nurses are going on strike, but the NHS values the hard work that nurses do and is working hard to support them. And I want whoever's listening to know that if there is any strike action, and during the strike action, the nurses will still continue to work and provide emergency and urgent services cover. So it's not like they're all stopping, as they have done in the past. They've been doing this, they've been working flat out, haven't they, all their lives? And they will have contingency plans, so urgent and emergency care will still go ahead if strike action takes place. And also, I think as employers, I hope they really recognize and value their staff and understand the importance of good pay in maintaining that work-life balance and improving the conditions for individuals and their families. So hopefully, like, fingers crossed. I mean, the NHS, I know, is working with the government and trade unions to ensure that there is minimal disruption to patient care, and hopefully that emergency services can continue to operate as normal despite the sort of strike action. So fingers crossed, disruption to service will be a minimum. And if you are concerned about the strike action, please do, pop any questions in either to Sister Siraad. Is there someone they can contact you if they want?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter. So if you go at Siraad SL, that's my Twitter account. So you're more than welcome to follow me, join me on there, and there's lots of conversations that happen. So.
Well, we are coming to the end of your segment, so I'm going to ask you to share probably a vulnerable moment, because I know what healthcare is like. So can you please leave us with a moment of your nursing career that will stay with you forever?
I have a couple, but I think there's one that really sort of stuck out to me, and it still continues to stick out to me because I've continued and sort of escalated it up over the years. So this was a few years ago. I was working on a ward, and I was working on a ward for children who had mental health difficulties, but also were deaf or hard of hearing. So I learned how to do British Sign Language. I can communicate in BSL to these children and to families, and it was a wonderful place to work. And I had a family who came in. They were from Africa, and their son had been sectioned under the Mental Health Act because he had psychosis, but the family didn't understand what that was or what that meant for them. And they grew up in a culture where it was any sort of psychiatric hold or anything like that was just taboo. It was they were never going to come out, etc. And actually they they saw me and straight away just started going off in my language, and they were like, help us, you know, they're trying to take our child away, we don't know what to do, etc. And actually I sat and I spent an hour and a half past my finishing time just sort of going through what was going on, why their son was presenting with psychosis, and like what this meant for them, and you're reassuring them and things like that. And actually seeing my hijab, you know, knowing that also I was Muslim as well, you know, they really felt safe, and they felt like, okay, I understand now, you know, are you going to be around for my child, etc. And I'm like, I work here, you know, nothing bad will come to happen to your son, but had I not been there on that particular shift on that particular day, I don't know what it would have turned out to be. But actually it really spurred a conversation around mental health within religion and what that means, and you know, the fact that it's still taboo altogether, actually, because of that lack of understanding. So I went off and did my master's research around focusing on the impact of mental illness within like different religious backgrounds and sort of what that looks like. And over time, you know, now I'm inshallah hoping to go back and do my PhD now and continuing on that particular research, because it's something that's completely, I had no previous readings to go on, so it's not even covered much at all within our demographic. So I'm hoping to try and revolutionize better understanding of what this particular field is really for our families and our patients, inshallah.
Inshallah. That's honestly, that's given me like proper goosebumps. And I know I speak on behalf of so many women watching that I really wish you like every ounce of success in your, whether it's your PhD or your career. You are, alhamdulillah, doing such a fantastic job, and you are such a needed person in our community. So thank you so much, Sister Siraad, for joining us. And you know, if you want to contact her, please join her on her Twitter. We'll leave her Twitter handle in our comment section. I know we haven't managed to answer all of your questions, and I know she's uber popular, but we will answer them in the questions, in the comments beneath. So take care, and you look after yourself, and carry on shining.
I will do, and you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Assalamu alaikum. So just remember that if you are considering an avenue into nursing, you can search nursing careers for more information. So I will put the link in the chat. So it's healthcareers.nhs.uk /we are the NHS /nursing careers, and there's an online quiz that you can do to see if you will suit a nursing career, and the link will be underneath this. And if you are considering it, you are never too old to learn a new skill, and we value nurses immensely, and as many of our mums have said, it's such a beautiful thing to do and so valued in our deen as well. So that was our second guest. I hope you all found that useful. I know I did, and I just think she's amazing. And if any of you are considering becoming nurses, do think about children in mental health, because honestly, they are so needed. And remember to stay tuned. So we've got one more guest, and then we've also got Zara Mohammed, who is the General Secretary of the MCB, for a special message right at the end. So this brings us on to our next topic and next guest, who is Dr. Lahmar. And I'm very, very excited to talk to her. So she studied traditional Islamic sciences, including fiqh, tafsir, hadith, usul, and she then has completed a number of postgraduate courses on teaching and MA in education and research methods. She's completed her PhD in diversity in Muslim schools in Britain, and she has been awarded the prestigious British Imams and Scholars Contributions and Achievements Award for outstanding contribution to female scholarship. So I already have a lot of questions, because mashallah, I don't know very many women in that space that are killing it as well as she is. So welcome, Sister Fella, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you so much, Kiran, for the invitation, and also for such a lovely introduction.
I mean, mashallah, I honestly, like, just reading that, I am in awe of you. So please tell me, how did you get into this space? Like, considering all of your academic achievements, I want to hear about you, your family, like your Islamic work. I'm like, just talk, please.
Barakallahu feek. I am a mom, mother of 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. I came to England when I turned 22 here in my early week of December when I first came, so it's around that time. And then since then I came without English, with very little English, you know, for as a third language, because in Algeria we have Arabic and French as second language, Arabic first language. So, and my husband was doing a PhD here, a student at the time, and I just finished my undergrad in Algeria, Islamic Studies, Quran and Hadith Sciences, and then straight away from graduation, I came, you know, in a short time, came with him and, you know, joined him in here. So yeah, that's in a brief. In terms of Islamic, in my work, besides the academic, now established in academia, but before that, I also worked, when I first came, I worked at a school, at madrasas. I gave halaqas at different masjids. Actually, I was over 2 decades giving tafsir halaqas at different masjids in Nottingham. Also, I taught,
whilst also having children.
yeah.
My mind boggles, genuinely.
That's tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I actually did my PhD with 4 children and did my first MA with 3 children and pregnant with expecting the 4th. I did the PG certs in secondary school for teaching RE when I was teaching secondary school at Alimiya course. I did my own postgrad, you know, professional development, paid for it with the Open University at the time. So that was, I was with 3 children and all of them under, you know, 6 and below. So it was a bit, so I can relate to moms who are struggling with handling, you know, being a mom and working full time at the same time studying. So it's a bit of time management actually works a lot, but also self-discipline and other issues that we will discuss, inshallah.
Okay, well, I'm genuinely, you know, mashallah, like I'm so impressed that you've achieved what you have in your career, in your family life. So I want to know what motivates you. And I mean, because you could have stopped, right? You could have just got your MA and been like, I'm good.
Yeah, actually, you know, there is something in me. I love studying. That is kind of a passion, and that's why when my husband asked for my hand, and I was in my early, you know, I was end of second year, beginning of my third year undergrad.
Yeah.
I actually said before I even think, I like to finish complete my postgrad till the end. This is like my passion. And if not, it means we are not compatible. So that was not a condition, but is a kind of a
Good for you.
I don't take it as a condition because I don't like conditions, but take it as something to test the ground whether the personalities match or don't match.
Yeah.
He fulfilled his promise and he supported me throughout. So the other thing is actually what motivates is the ibadah concept. I saw, you know, an ihsan concept, and ihsan for me is a concept that is hard to translate into English, and it is something that contains love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with excellence, with beauty, with balance, with harmony, with gentleness, with improvement, with willpower, with drive. If you see the Surah Yusuf alayhi salam and you see his journey, you find a journey of ihsan. Ihsan within the self, ihsan with those around him, ihsan in dealing with difficulties and challenges facing him from different angles. So that inspired me actually, and I always find an inspiration in Yusuf alayhi salam, and also I found inspiration that keeps me as well the motivation high and the willpower, you know, going forward, the drive. When I see the wife of Fir'aun, for example, and the challenges that she faced. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us that role model for agency, that you are somebody who can make a change in this life. And also you find Maryam alayhi salam, and as a mother, the motherhood, and how the motherhood is presented as an active actually in the society and active in the community. Also we find Surah Al-Mujadila, and I find this example in the Quran when this woman is confident, she had an argument with Rasulullah, not an argument in a bad way, but in a discussion, looking for evidence and challenging the customs, and even Rasulullah, so till the revelation support of that woman, and she was discussing not only a leader of the community, she was discussing with the Prophet, the final of the messengers. So that kind of gave me from within my deen, that confidence that I have a role to play in this world as a Muslimah, and that role I have to play it with ihsan. And to do ihsan, I have to learn and have to keep learning throughout any stage and any work I am engaged with. So this is kind of it.
Honestly, it's very, very inspiring, and I know I'm not the only one. One of our readers has said, please tell us your story about your hijab in your youth and how you made that a condition for your education, I think, in terms of meeting your husband, because it's such a powerful story.
The hijab, actually, I decided to wear the hijab when I was at year 7 from my own will, but my parents opposed that decision at the time because I said you were too young, and it was secular kind of education in Algeria. The hijab was very strange and odd for an educated woman, even though our mothers are wearing the traditional cover, but as an educated woman in Algeria at the time, not now, it was kind of odd. And you will face bullying, you will face lots of comments, negative comments from some teachers from the school, and you can even for salah, you can be beaten for it if you are making wudu and salah at school. So my parents they love hijab, but they were kind of worried about my well-being if I wear it at that time, year 7. So I start to cover from my own, just my hair, and they used to call us grandmothers. At year 8, I decided to wear it, and my parents, I remember my dad saying to me, I will buy you the most beautiful clothes, but just delay it till you go to college, you're older. Wow. You can face the challenges. And I love the hijab, but I just worried about you. And I said, look, Dad, I am well convinced. This is my love, this is my passion. I'm not going to school if I'm not wearing the hijab. That's my final decision. And that was in year 8. So since then, I didn't think twice. That kind of becomes part of me, but with it I took the hijab as a pulpit for worship. In worship, I take it as something of duty of worship in all the excellence. It's more than a headscarf. It's something to present that excellence that our ibadah and our Islam presents, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك سيرحمهم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. The believing men and believing women are allies of one another. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, and establish prayer and give zakah and obey Allah and His Messenger. Those Allah will have mercy upon them. Indeed, Allah is exalted in might and wise, and that means will grant those people wisdom and mighty and tawfiq. So is the ikhlas and the niyyah, and I think that is the motivation that keeps me against the challenges. And there are lots of challenges, not only here, even from during the secondary school specifically, and even during the college. Later on at the university, I decided the baccalaureate was sciences, so physics, maths, and biology. But then I decided to go with a strong passion to Islamic University, and I really did all the kind of activism to get into at that time to the university, because they said your sciences, you cannot get into the Islamic University at that time, but then that changed. So it's a journey of we have to ask ourselves what are our longer goals and what is our vision. and the long vision for our families. And when you asked about, my husband, because I have that vision, and my vision is that we have to be compatible in how we see our family and how we see the upbringing of our children and how we see our roles in the society. Therefore, we avoid lots of troubles later on and clash, because I have that strong kind of commitment. And the last thing I want is actually a husband who will say to me, look, now you don't have any involvement in the community, nothing, and you just sit down and cook for me. I love cooking. I'm not saying that I love, and I think it's a great service to the family, but I'm thinking that our roles are beyond that, and our duties are more than that.
Just listening to you, and I don't for a second doubt that you've had lots of struggles and challenges, but it reminds me of something that we had when we were younger, and it was a hadith that said, whoever, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, whoever comes to me walking, I will come to him running, and whoever comes to me with enough sins that would fill the earth, I will meet him with as much forgiveness. And I genuinely think, like, because you are so committed to everything, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it, he has willed this for you in the most beautiful of ways. Alhamdulillah.
I really think, whenever if I have challenges in my way, I straight away turn to my salah and turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with dua, and I felt that kind of support. I really feel it, and that was the great kind of support from within, because when you come here at the age of 22, just turned 22 here, and with no English, after it was kind of painful, really painful. When you are I was very, very active in my undergrad. I was active in the student union. I was leader. I was kind of eloquent in Arabic, and I was very active. And then I found myself from a really active life and the undergrad independent. I was on campus away from my family, 100 kilometers away. And then suddenly I find myself at home, can't speak the language. I need my husband to go with the GP with me, to go to the GP with me to translate for me. We lived in an area neighborhood that was really with what we call today the Islamophobia. So actually we used to, I was too scared to go outside. By myself, the neighbors were hostile to us, me and my friend, as visible with hijab. They actually can swear at us, they can shout at us, they can abuse us through the letterbox. They can even nappies on our back garden. So that was a shock as well at the beginning. So I was like, my husband would say to me, I wanted to go to English classes. He would come from university, take me to the English class, come back, bring me back, because I was too scared to go. But I was insisting that I will learn, and straight away joined courses of in the college, and quickly learned the language. So I remember the first year that was striking, because I remember I was giving the halaqah to the sisters in the masjid here in Nottingham, and they loved it. And some reverse sisters or convert sisters were with us in the halaqah, and they wanted me to give them in English, because I thought, oh, the sisters are so engaged. And I said, I apologized, because my English was not at the level to give that study circle in English. And they were, persuading me to give it, and assist volunteers to translate for me. When I'm giving, because I understand more than I speak, then I said, this is not the translation I want, because that's not exactly what I want. So I apologized for the halaqah, but I went home crying. I went home in tears. I said to my husband, I felt like unable Muslim. I'm not able to help those sisters. And I just made dua, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Release my tongue so people can understand what I want to say. That was in my first months here in England. But alhamdulillah, after a year, I started the halaqah in English. After 2 years, I achieved the stage 1 and stage 2 qualification in teacher training for adults, because I was teaching adults, and I want always professional development in what I do. So that was by 3rd year, I finished that, and I also completed the course in sewing. This is kind of I love that's another passion and besides academia.
Honestly, I mean, I could sit here and listen to you all day, but I know we can't. But I do have a question for you. We have an anonymous question here, and I really want to read this to you because I know a lot of Muslim women go through this. So the sister writes that she is considering going back to uni after 15 years. I feel stupid because I will start my journey the same time as my son, who will start uni around then. I have 5 children and a very demanding home life. My youngest is 4. I don't know how I will manage it all, and I'm really worried about the guilt and the pressure. Going back to uni in my 40s is something I never imagined, and I know it will be hard. Will it affect my children? Will my family fall apart? Am I being selfish? Am I too old? I just know that I am tired of being home and available and never doing anything for myself, an achievement to be proud of. And I guess that is the question I'd like for you to answer, and how you would advise the sister on how she manages her home life and her academic pursuits.
Yeah. First, we have to identify and keep in check our negative self-talk, because it can be stressful to think that if we go back, we are kind of stupid, or if I don't excel in this is stupidity, you know, because it decreases our motivation, increase our, kind of feelings of helpless, and also eventually may inhibit or limit our ability to reach our full potential. So this is nothing to do with stupidity by age. I taught students at the university who are in their 60s, and they were brilliant students, and they were so successful because they bring with them their life experiences from their families, because a mother with many children means she learns how to handle multitasking, and that will help her into the studies. So for the guilt, there is a tiny kind of dose of parental guilt that can be helpful. But when mom's guilt starts to stop us from learning and developing and looking after our own needs, it becomes harmful. So fulfilling here your own ambition is part of caring for yourself and caring for the family as well, because feeling more positive in life can better help you to take care of your family in a more positive approach and more positive spirit. Sometimes the guilt source is based on some cultural expectations of motherhood, and as the candle that should be burned to lighten up the lives of others. Yes, but we have we can lighten the life of others when we also enlighten our hearts and keep learning as well. We don't have to be burnt. Can't we develop ourselves, our families, our ummah at the same time? We just need that balance. The balance right, and setting the priorities right, and at each phase. Actually, the 4 years of youngest child means the child will go to school, means you have more time, and with that time, I think with time management, that will leave a lot. If I summarize, the children, they have tarbiyah, and the important tarbiyah they get from us is role modeling. And if we are telling them or go outside and be active in the community, but actually we are not, actions speak louder than words. So don't worry, the life experiences are as important during the learning journey. The motherhood is rich with lots of wisdom that you gain through those years, and this will feed into the studies. Assess your skills. Realistically, some skills of academia may not be there, so assess them and your self-development and what you need. Look at extra support at the courses that you are targeting and what the university is presenting. There are lots of tutorials online, and this is one part. For myself, I was in Saudi Arabia for some years with 3 children. I couldn't go outside, so what I did, I scheduled a program at home, self-taught at home, and it was computer programming, learning. It was language, academic English language at the university level. It was writing, typing. It was then when I came back and I straight away joined the Open University. This is again, look for flexible programs like distance learning, for example, if you cannot, if the circumstances do not allow. I found it so helpful with at the beginning with the Open University, because full-time and 3 children I couldn't, so I did distance learning at the beginning. So look for the alternatives and also see, map out the required study time and what is realistically possible and what other things which are not needed to do. Means I can share with the family, they have to take some responsibility, and this is type of support, building a support system, have a communication with the family, share the goals with the, with the and the success as well with your family, because then in here will be more realistic. Try small at the beginning, try a course that is, you see what you need and then you adjust accordingly. I think this will be much easier as a step by step, but the long goal, break it down to small goals, and then further, quickly, gradually you move towards. My goal was to get a full-time scholarship with stipend for my PhD, and I got it. But that starts from very, little English. But gradually you build kind of steps and you move forward.
Wow. I mean, there is so much in there that you have given to our audience. I am in awe, and I'm really conscious that I've kept you. So I just want to say thank you so much. And genuinely, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve you and all the work you do. And I really hope, is there a way our mamas can reach you if they want to speak to you?
I'm on Twitter, so as well, you'll find it at Lahmar at Twitter, so you'll find me there.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Fala. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. So just to summarize some of the key things that I took away from there, I really liked her example of be that candle, that you can provide light to others without burning out. I also liked her tip about management and making things easy for yourself. So, thinking about that long-term goal and actually just manifesting it in a way and working towards it. I'm sure there's lots of things I could say. She was just a powerhouse, wasn't she? I apologize also for switching the screen off. My little one woke up, so motherhood juggling for you right there. She is under my little tent having a bit of a feed. But that brings us quite nicely towards the end of the show. I know it's late, ladies. I won't keep you much longer. We now have our final remote guest message from Dr. Zahra Mohammed. So for those of you that don't know, she is our first Muslim female leader, and I'm all here for it. So I'm going to let you guys go and you watch this video.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, Muslim mamas. This is Zahra Mohammed, your Secretary General of the Muslim Council Britain. I'm so delighted that I could share a message with you all this evening, but also apologetic that I couldn't join you in person. I'm so inspired by the network, by this incredible powerhouse of women that are not only offering support and care for one another, but a family. And that is what this work is all about. Reflecting on being the Secretary General of the Muslim Council Britain and the first female and the youngest, I thought I would share maybe 3 quick messages of hope and inspiration for you all today. Very much on this idea of change makers. What does it take to change something? A 1.5 years ago, my life was completely transformed, and it wasn't something I ever thought I could be or could achieve. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome getting there. But when people ask me, well, Zahra, why did you do it? Never mind, how did you do it? I always say to people that I put the cause first. I got over myself and I thought to myself, what is the difference that I want to make? And that's what inspires me about the Muslim Mamas Network so much, is that a lot of women came together, maybe even a small bunch at the start, and said, why can't we? And I think that's the spirit that we should all be moving in. Why can't we? And look at the great things that we've achieved now. The second thing I've learned in my journey so far is the power of networks and good people around you. We already have enough critics, including ourselves, and plenty of people to tell us what we can't do or what we shouldn't do or what's not possible or it's going to be difficult and hard. But what I found is along my journey, I've had so many incredible people, men and women, nudge me along and say, Zara, why not? If Allah opens an opportunity, a door to good, wouldn't you take it? If you could change just one person's life or make someone smile, you know, all of us have been bestowed with a gift, something that makes us all special. And it's not your ability to be really good at maths, or maybe it is for some people, but it's our ability to create warmth and comfort in each other's hearts. It's a smile. It's that person that makes everybody laugh when really you want to cry. It's that person that is motivated to stand up for truth and injustice, call it out. And it's that person who, irrespective of the challenges or the difficulty or whatever they're enduring, gets up again to fight another day. And that is what this powerhouse of this network really is. And for myself, every time it gets tough, I remind myself, Zara, people are counting on you, and the future is counting on us. So we got to do something. And finally, my final bit of motivation that I hopefully have inspired somebody today, and if not, you all inspire me, so that's enough. My final message is one about change. Being a change maker, but also being part of change and open to change. Sometimes we see ourselves in the story that maybe isn't actually where we're at. So we perceive ourselves as change makers, but we're actually stopping progress because of all of our own assumptions and biases. And what do I mean by that? I mean that sometimes we have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and think about how can we add value? What can we do to contribute? Being a change maker isn't just about being the person at the front and saying this is how we're going to do it. It's about having a voice and using it. It's about knowing how to ask questions, how to be a supporter, a friend, but also how to offer some healthy criticism or constructive feedback, I think we call it. So my point being about change and change makers is that we need plenty of them, but we also need all the people around them that are going to help us do the things we want to do. My vision for change at the MCB is about inclusion, diversity, women, young people, underrepresented groups. It's about confident, articulate British Muslims. It's about representation in all spheres of life. It's about our institutions and good governance. I have a vision of community in which we all belong and are excited to be part of and confident in. I know many of the women at this event today will have gone through, shall we say, some battle scars worth of experiences. But know that there's someone who's championing you, who's got your back, who's in your corner, but is doing it for everybody. And that's definitely my dream and aspiration. And thinking about it, I probably thought that was a bit crazy at one point. So my concluding message is be a change maker in your own right, but also be part of supporting that change. Be confident, surround yourself by wonderful people. And if you can't find them, then be one, right? We attract what we are. And finally, remember that with Allah is the outcome of all affairs. So trust Allah, He'll get you through it no matter what's going on. You'll always find a way. So that's everything from me. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and inshallah, I hope to join you all in person or virtually soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I hope you guys are as inspired and as emotional as I am when I watch that. I mean, we have had a fantastic lineup of women who are Muslim, who are obviously creating waves of change in the communities that they are working in. So I would like you all, and I ask all of you to make a special dua for them, that may they find success in everything that they do and touch. And I'm very sad to say that that brings us to the end of our show. I wish I could have had much longer with all of them because I think they're all fantastic, but you can reach them out on their Twitter handles, or, you know, leave your questions underneath this Facebook live chat. If you want to reach out to me about anything that we've talked about, or if there's something that has triggered something in you, you can find me on Instagram at the Munching Medic. And please remember, we are a community of support. That means we are here for one another, and that means you are also here for Muslim Mamas. So don't forget to follow Muslim Mamas on Instagram, like the Facebook page, share the post, And also remember that fantastic podcast, Not Another Mum Pod. If you want to be a host or a guest, or if you want to take part, join our Muslim Mamas volunteer team and complete the Google form, which we will attach underneath here. I want to just finish off by saying something that Zara has left us with. So Zara won the majority affiliate votes, and upon her election, she said, "My vision is to continue to build a truly inclusive, diverse and representative body, one which is driven by the needs of British Muslims for the common good." You've all just seen the special video message that she has sent to all of our lovely Muslim mamas. It is so powerful and it is so uplifting. And I hope alongside this video and alongside everything else that you've heard today from the women that are mothers outside of their roles, I hope you find inspiration, peace, but I also hope you find the light and the courage to be that change maker and to change your lives if that's what you want to do. I will bring that to an end now. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your questions and taking part. Have a wonderful evening, mums. I look forward to speaking to some of you. Take care, look after yourselves, and please remember to keep our speakers in your du'as and also our wonderful Muslim Mama community, because without them, none of us would be here today. Take care, keep me in your du'as as well. Assalamu alaikum, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.